On the morning of April 10th, 1912, the Titanic left England on a voyage to New York. 4 days later, the Titanic lay at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And on Wednesday, July 18th, 1956, the Andrea Doria left Italy. The Andrea Doria was also traveling to New York. And 8 days later, this great ship also lay at the bottom of the Atlantic. So the sinking of these two ships shocked the world. Reports of the tragedies filled the newspapers for days. When the Andrea Doria went down, people compared her sinking with the sinking of the Titanic, and there were similarities between the two events. However, there were also important differences. Okay, so what are some of these similarities? First of all, both ships were transatlantic ocean liners. In addition, they were also both luxury liners. They carried many of the world's rich and famous people. In fact, 10 American millionaires lost their lives when the Titanic sank. Today, millions of dollars worth of gold, silver, and cash may still remain inside these two sunken ships. Another similarity was that as each ship was sinking, there were acts of both heroism and villainy. Some people acted very bravely. Some even gave up their lives so that others could live. However, there were also people who acted cowardly. For example, one man on the Titanic dressed up as a woman so that he could get into a lifeboat and save his own life. And one last similarity was that both of these ships were considered unsinkable. People believed that they would never sink. Okay, so now let's shift our attention to the differences between these disasters. To begin with, the Titanic was on her maiden voyage, that is, her very first voyage across the Atlantic. The Andrea Doria, on the other hand, was on her 101st transatlantic crossing. Another difference was that the ships sank for different reasons. The Titanic hit an iceberg, while the Andrea Doria collided with another ship. Another contrast was that the Andrea Doria had radar to warn of the approach of the other ship, but the Titanic was not equipped with radar. The Titanic had only a lookout, and the lookout saw the iceberg only moments before the ship struck it. But, of course, the greatest difference between these two terrible accidents was the number of lives lost. When the Titanic sank, more than 1,500 people died. They either drowned or froze to death in the freezing North Atlantic water. A little over 700 people survived the sinking of the Titanic. When the Andrea Doria sank, 60 people lost their lives, and about 1,650 lives were saved. One reason that so many people died on the Titanic was that the ship was considered to be unsinkable, and so there were only about half the number of lifeboats needed to save all the people aboard. The Andrea Doria had more than enough lifeboats to rescue every person on the ship. However, they were only able to use about half of the lifeboats because of a mechanical problem. The passengers and crew of the Andrea Doria were very lucky that another ship was able to rescue most of them. The passengers on the Titanic were not so fortunate. The wreck of the Titanic wasn't even found until September of 1985. Whenever there are large numbers of people traveling together on a boat, ship, or plane, the possibility of a disaster is present. Most people do arrive safely at their destination, but accidents like shipwrecks and plane crashes do happen. And these accidents remind us that no matter how safe we feel, accidents can often happen suddenly and unexpectedly.